الليلة الظلماء أعدتم بدر أمتنا فقيد الليلة الظلماء. سلام على قاهرين العدا، سلام على غزة الصامدين، سلام.
With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The first cargo of Algerian fuel arrived at the port of Tripoli in Lebanon following instructions of the President of the Republic to supply Lebanon with fuel. 26 Algerian athletes would take part in the Paralympics due to kick off tonight in the French capital, Paris. In the West Bank, at least 11 Palestinians were killed today at dawn in Israeli raids, and the Palestinian presidency said the current situation in Gaza and the West Bank would lead to dire and dangerous results. The UN Special Envoy to Yemen, Hans Grundberg, has called for constructive dialogue to achieve peace in Yemen following the meetings he held in Muscat, Oman. Those were the major developments. Now the full news edition. Good afternoon. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Hattaf, has received a telephone call from the Libyan minister in charge of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the Government of National Unity of Libya, Tahir al-Bahour. Jamil Salmani has the details.
On behalf of the Government of National Unity, the Libyan minister expressed his deep gratitude and appreciation for the honorable position advocated by Algeria during the recent UN Security Council meeting on the situation in Libya. He also held the correctness and clarity of this position in support of the Libyan people and their legitimate aspirations to restore security and stability in the context of national unity. In this context, it is worth recalling that during the aforementioned meeting of the Security Council, Algeria's representative emphasized Algeria's firm position on the Libyan crisis, which is based on a number of rules and constants. Mainly, the solution to the Libyan crisis must be peaceful and political. The solution to the Libyan crisis should be through a Libyan process under the auspices of the United Nations. The solution to the Libyan crisis must lead to the organization of free, fair and transparent elections that reunite all segments of the Libyan people and ensure the unification of their institutions and meet their internal and external aspirations and ambitions.
The Sonatrach Group has announced in a press release the arrival of the first cargo of Algerian fuel oil at the port of Tripoli in Lebanon on board its tanker in Acre, which left the old port of Skikdon on August 22nd. The details with Essia Bakar.
The cargo, carrying an estimated 30,000 tons of fuel oil, is intended to supply Lebanese power stations and contribute to the restoration of the country's electricity supply. Sonatrach said, pointing out that the fuel produced at the Skikda refinery is characterized by its high energy quality and low sulfur content, a necessary condition for the production of electricity. This initiative is in line with the decision of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, to come to the aid of Lebanon, a brotherly country, by providing it with the energy it needs to overcome its current crisis. Lebanese Energy Minister Walid Fayyad said that this initiative will strengthen cooperation and help Lebanon diversify its energy sources.
I hope that this initiative will strengthen the tight brotherly relations between the two countries and open up new ways of cooperation, especially in the field of energy, in a more sustainable way with Algeria's support. This shipment helps to diversify energy sources in Lebanon, so we will have two energy sources in addition to the Iraqi fuel. This will allow us to increase the energy supply so that the people can enjoy a greater amount of energy because we have a significant demand.
The Algerian ambassador to Lebanon, Rashid Belbaki, has said solidarity between Algeria and Lebanon comes in line with historic relations linking the two countries.
Today, Algeria fulfilled the promise of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, who promised to stand by Lebanon. Algeria's solidarity with Lebanon is not something new from the Algerian diplomacy and president. We inherited this from the Algerian Revolution and martyrs. Our revolution survived thanks to the solidarity of peoples and countries, and Lebanon interacted positively with the Algerian Revolution by staging demonstrations and solidarity campaigns. This stayed engraved in the memory of Algeria and the generation of the November Revolution, as well as the memory of the new generation.
That was the statement of Algeria's ambassador to Lebanon.
The Paralympic Games will kick off today at 8 p.m. Paris time, which is 7 p.m. Algiers time. 4,400 Paralympic athletes from 884 delegations will come together to celebrate the start of 11 days of competition. Just like the Olympic ceremony, the Paralympic ceremony will break with tradition and take place not in a stadium but in the streets. The athletes will parade down the Avenue des Champs-Élysées before arriving at Place de la Concorde. Algeria will be represented by 26 athletes. Around 2 million tickets to watch the Paris 2024 Paralympics Games have been sold on the eve of the opening ceremony. And now, on the 13th day of the election campaign, the candidates and their representative in the September 7th presidential election have reaffirmed their commitment to improving social and economic achievements through measures designed to strengthen sustainable development. Jamil Selmani has the details in this report.
The election campaign manager of independent candidate Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, Mr. Brahim Arad, said from the southern province of Tamanrasset that Mr. Tebboune was committed to continuing to build a strong national economy and to making optimum use of natural resources. At a meeting held in the province capital as part of the election campaign for the September 7th presidential election, Mr. Merad said that reviving a new development dynamic in Tamanrasset was one of his candidate's main priorities if he was re-elected for a second term, adding that the province would benefit from a complementary program following the example of the provinces of Jelfa, Khanshla, Tindouf and Tizi Ouzou. At the end of his speech, Mr. Marad called on citizens to turn out massively to the polls on the 7th of September to vote for independent candidate Abdelmajid Tebboune with a view to completing the process of development and building a new Algeria. The candidate of the Movement of Society for Peace, MSP, Abdelali Hassani Sharif, also held a meeting in the province of Tamanrasset where he highlighted the main points of his electoral program. Representative of candidate Abdelali Hassani Sharif in the province of Ghardaya is continuing to explain his candidate's program in the province during interactive meetings with the local population and listen to the concerns about local socio-economic development and the expectations of young people. For its part, the electoral campaign management of the Socialist Forces Front FFS candidate, Mr. Youssef Aushish, is stepping up its meetings and field trips throughout the various regions of the province of Ghardaya to meet voters and explain its candidate's program under the slogan Vision and invite them to vote for him.
An Algerian parliamentary delegation is taking part in the 9th Annual General Assembly of the African Parliamentary Network on Development Evaluation in Cotonou, Benin. The Council will be represented as part of the parliamentary delegation at this annual general meeting, which is being held under the slogan A Decade of Capacity Building for African Parliamentarians for Better Legislation, Quality Control and Evaluation of Public Policies, Reflection, Cooperation and Prospects by the Vice Chairman of the Economic and Financial Affairs Committee, Samir Zubiri, and Council Member Youssef Laharab. At least 11 Palestinians were killed today at dawn Zionist occupation raids in the north of the occupied West Bank. In a brief statement, the Palestinian Ministry of Health said that 6 people were killed in the town of Jenin and 5 others in 2 separate incursions by the Zionist occupation army. A previous report stated that 9 people had been killed and 11 wounded. 5 Palestinians were killed by bullets fired by the Zionist occupation army in the town of Jenin and the village of Sir in the southeast of the occupied West Bank, while 4 others were killed following a bombardment carried out by the Zionist occupying forces on the Al-Farha camp south of Tubas. With these new martyrs, the death toll in the occupied West Bank has risen to at least 662 martyrs and almost 5,400 wounded by fire from the Zionist army since October 7, 2023. The official spokesman for the Palestinian presidency, Nabil Abu Rodaina, today said that the escalating Zionist war in the West Bank and the cities, villages and camps of Jenin, Tulkarem, Tubas and other Palestinian cities, in addition to the genocide in the Gaza Strip, will lead to dire and dangerous results. Said Bourazi reports.
Nabil Abu Rudaina said that the Zionist aggression launched at dawn on Wednesday in the north of the West Bank is part of a global war against our people, our land and our sanctity, and is a dangerous escalation of which the occupation authorities and the American side, which provides protection and support to this occupation in order to pursue its war, are responsible. He underlined that this policy of escalation, the destruction of towns, the killing of citizens, arrests and colonization will not bring security and stability to anyone, and that everyone will pay the price for this nonsense of the Zionist occupier. Abu Rudaina called on the American side to intervene immediately and to force the occupation authorities to put an end to their all-out war against the Palestinian people, the Palestinian land and its holy places. He continued, the world must take immediate and urgent measures to stop this barbaric policy of the Zionist entity, which is a threat to the stability of the region and the whole world. Since Tuesday evening, the occupying forces have launched a massive assault on Jenin, Tubas and Tulkarem, which has so far claimed 11 lives and caused major destruction of infrastructure.
Still in the Palestinian file, the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has said that the funds allocated by the Zionist entity to support settlers' incursions into the Al-Aqsa Mosque reflects its official policy based on colonialism and racism. In blatant defiance and contempt for Arab and international reactions to Monday's call by a Zionist official, the so-called Minister of Heritage has announced the allocation of 2 million shekels to support settlers' incursions into the Al-Aqsa Mosque and to reinforce the so-called Torah narrative about the Holy Mosque, said the statement from the ministry. The ministry warned that this declared support represents an official Zionist policy that seeks to Judaize the Al-Aqsa Mosque and change its current legal status, in addition to threatening to exacerbate the situation in the West Bank by plunging it into a vortex of chaos. It also continues the same source, with a notable escalation of attacks by settler terrorist militias as happened recently in several villages of the south of Beit al-Lahem. The toll of the Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip has risen to 40,534 martyrs and 93,778 wounded, mostly women and children, since October 7th. According to the Palestinian Health Authorities, the Zionist occupation army has announced that has committed a series of massacres over the last 24 hours in the Gaza Strip, claiming 58 martyrs. And now Amnesty International has called on European Union countries not to supply the Israeli occupation with weapons in a letter addressed to the EU's High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Joseph Borrell. Jamal Salmani has the details.
The organization urged the European Union in a letter published by the German news agency not to invest or trade with the Israeli colonies in the occupied Palestinian territories, which the International Court of Justice in The Hague has deemed illegal in a recent advisory opinion. The organization's call to tighten EU policy comes ahead of a meeting of EU foreign ministers in Brussels to discuss the war on Gaza. Last July, the International Court of Justice ruled that Israel's nearly 60-year occupation of Palestinian territory violates international law and must end as soon as possible. The court In a landmark opinion from the highest judicial body in the United Nations, although it is not legally binding, noted that Israel's colony policy effectively constitutes illegal annexation. It said its members, including EU countries, have a responsibility not to support the policy of occupation or to accept the status quo created by Israel. It also called on the European Commission to review the EU-Israel Partnership Agreement in terms of its compatibility with human rights obligations.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. The UN Special Envoy to Yemen, Hans Grandberg, has called for constructive dialogue to achieve peace in Yemen. This came following the visit of the UN official to Muscat, where he held meetings with Omani high-ranking officials. Mr. Grandberg also met with the chief negotiator of the Houthi Ansarullah movement and stressed the urgent need for de-escalation in all Yemen. The UN envoy also highlighted the importance of placing the interest of Yemeni people at the forefront. The United Nations has confirmed the safety of the polio vaccine that will be administered to more than 500,000 Palestinian children during a vaccination campaign in Gaza at a time when the disease has reappeared in the wake of the ongoing genocidal Israeli aggression in the Palestinian enclave. During his daily press briefing from New York, the UN spokesman Stéphane Dujarric stressed that there had been misinformation about the vaccine, stressing that the safest and most effective way to protect children against the polio virus is to vaccinate them.
We have seen some disinformation regarding the polio vaccine that we plan to use in Gaza, and I want to make the following clear. The safest and most effective way to protect children against the polio virus, regardless of the variant, is to vaccinate them, of course. UNICEF, UNRWA, and the World Health Organization are planning to roll out a campaign in Gaza to prevent the spread of the variant type 2 polio virus. This will be done in 2 rounds, each consisting of 2 drops of oral polio vaccine type 2. This vaccine is safe, it is effective, and it offers top quality protection. It is a vaccine globally recommended for variant 2, type 2 polio virus outbreaks by the World Health Organization. The vaccine will be provided to more than 640,000 children under 10 years of age, with the aim of reaching at least 95% of the children in the first round.
That was the spokesperson for the UN Secretary General, Stéphane Dujarric. Sudanese authorities said that the number of the victims of floods hitting the country increased to 138, while the death toll of cholera reached 48. Esra Bikkar has the details in this report.
Heavy and torrential rains ravaged cities and villages in the northern state, which led to the collapse of buildings, the flooding of agricultural lands, and the blocking of roads. The Minister of Health announced 102 new cholera cases, bringing to 1,223 the total number of cholera cases. Earlier, at least 25 people were killed and 30 others injured in an artillery attack in Al Fasher, the capital of the North Darfur state in western Sudan. The health officer of the state of North Darfur said the rapid support forces in Al Fasher targeted the Abu Shouk camp market with 4 shells, killing 25 people and injuring around 30. The Al Fasher Resistance Committee, a non-governmental organization, said in a statement posted on its Facebook page that the RSF bombed the private sub-Saharan secondary school in Al Fasher, destroying its main hall, laboratory, morgue, and other buildings. Violent clashes between the Sudanese army and the rapid support paramilitary forces have been raging since May 10 in Al Fasher.
Back to national news. The Minister of Religious Affairs and Waqf of Endowment, Youssef Belmehdi, is to take part on the 29th and 30th of August in Yaoundé, Cameroon, at the head of the Algerian delegation in the 50th session of the Council of Foreign Ministers of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC. And now a reminder of today's top stories. The first cargo of Algerian fuel arrived at the port of Tripoli in Lebanon following instruction of the President of the Republic to supply Lebanon with fuel. 26 Algerian athletes will take part in the Paralympics due to kick off tonight in the French capital, Paris. In the West Bank, at least 11 Palestinians were killed today at dawn in Israeli raids, and the Palestinian presidency said the current situation in Gaza and the West Bank will lead to dire and dangerous results. The UN Special Envoy to Yemen, Hans Grundberg, has called for constructive dialogue to achieve peace in Yemen following the meetings he held in Muscat, Oman. That's it for today's news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to a program dedicated to Munut Farwan's novella The Poor Man's Son, compiled and presented by Asya Bakkar.
Our Talk. A weekly program with guests activating in different fields.